Okay, it is July, the 7th of July, and we are here with Bobby Bradford, and I'm William Roper, and we just got the news that Oscar Brashear has passed, known recently as Osad. So we're just going to have some reminiscences from Bobby, and maybe a few words from myself about Osad. So, when did you first run into him?
Oh, I can't remember clearly, but I knew Oscar all the way back to the 60s, late 60s here, where he at that point in his life was busy, really busy as a bee, because he's one of the first guys around town on call for backing up people like Stevie Wonder and people of that stature in terms of performance. But the interesting part of this is that when you called me this morning and told me about it, I had looked at the email and I couldn't get to the phone because I was going through my morning rituals. But then when you did tell me that Osad, I had problems with that was the second of his adopted names, wasn't it? He at one point called him something else.
I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, he had another name before he went to Osad. But that's irrelevant. But what I'm after is that I don't ordinarily respond to somebody's death in the way I felt this morning. And recently a lot of friends closer to me than Oscar have died. Yeah. And I said to you right away, I'd like to talk to you. But somehow the morning began for me. Sometimes you have that last before you get up, and within the last hour of getting up, that late morning dream. Yeah.
Waking dreams.
Yeah, that last one. And what I had this morning, if I were a screenwriter, man, I'd be on this. I'm traveling with what most of your lookers and readers would call a minstrel show, when we actually called it a tent show. And this is me. You know how in a dream sometimes you can see yourself as a performer.
Yes.
And sometimes you're just the observer.
Yes.
Well, in this dream, I was the observer and performer. We were a traveling tent show in the South, and we were between jobs. And the trucks were parked somewhere off the road somewhere with our equipment and all that stuff in it. We were down to the last nickel. Yeah. And we were going around shaking the parking meters and going places, hitting the vendors, hoping some quarters would fall out. This is how tough things were. Yeah. And we had come up, and there seemed to be about 6 of us, the way it went. And I actually, as a kid, had actually seen the minstrel shows. Right. And I knew how they worked, and so the dream made use of that. Yeah. Even though when I was a kid, they were still calling these things minstrels. And years following, when these things disappeared, people seemed to just blanket it all with a tent show, and that's not quite the same. Right. Right. But they have a lot in common. Anyhow, in this one, there was this one restaurant, and I could tell we were in the South somehow. This was a black restaurant. They had a sign out front, like breakfast, so much money, and lunch with tea, so much money, and we're talking about 15 cents or 20 cents. And we all mustered our quarters that we had gotten by kicking the vendor machines, and even though that doesn't fit quite right in the time period. Yeah. And we had some quarters, and we went to this one black woman who had a restaurant, like Aunt Maud or whatever. Yeah. And she said, well, the best I can do, I can give you guys, make you a hamburger, but it won't have any meat in it. This is the dream, man, right? It's very clear. Yeah. We're all saying, what? He said, well, the best I can give you for a nickel is whatever you have there between you is the bun and the lettuce and maybe a piece of cheese and some mayonnaise and stuff. But there won't be any meat in there. If you want meat in there, it's going to be about 25 cents each, or something like that. We were all making all kinds of noise, and we're all discussing whether we should abandon this thing and just quit altogether. Yeah. And the subject is, do we want to be in show business, man? We want to stay in this, and we're having serious discussion about this is just not working. Yes. But we all agree that we're artists, and we're going to continue till our next booking. And so over there, the truck that carries all the the tent equipment and stuff, a great big flatbed, and all of this. And then we did a little rehearsal during the period while we were out there parked. But a group of people parked like that, we know traveling in the South now. You expect for the police to come up and say, "Now, hey, boy, what is this? You're not playing here tonight. What's happening? What's this?"
Yeah.
And we go through, "Oh, yes, sir. We're just parking here till we can get a little food and we'll be on our way."
Yeah.
We're all going through that shuffle, This is a serious dream.
Yes.
And so one of our singers, as it turns out in this thing, now get this, is Natalie Cole. But not the famous Natalie Cole, just the Natalie Cole that I know as his daughter. And her voice and all.
Yeah.
And she somehow in one of the rehearsals singing that song that she did, that he made famous, that after his death she made a record overdubbing her singing with him. You know all this?
Yes, yes.
My darling, my darling.
Yeah.
And this is all in the dream. So I'm going to have to go back, you see, tomorrow, next day, and go through this dream, because it's my dreams, and I believe in them. I don't believe in them giving you a lotto number or so the end of the world or something. But they tell you about some things that you're thinking about. And it's like a cement mixer. It's churning around things in there. And it throws out stuff and gets down to like separating the wheat from the chaff or something. That's what my dreams do. And I'm sure everybody else's too, but I've read the Freud book and Jung book on dreams. Both I find garbage. No offense to whoever out there. Right?
Yeah.
Anyhow, so I thought that might have put me in a strange mood this morning to respond to what you said about Oscar. And I felt like as soon as you told me, I have to talk to somebody about this. We have to say something.
Yeah.
It's like we have to sort of bury him or something,
Yeah.
Now, that's the first time in my life. I didn't even respond to the late John Carter this way. And the interesting thing about that was, in my own personal history, I never take the death of someone like that in my zone. I don't get it at first. Even in my immediate family, when somebody died,
you need a little time.
Yeah, I don't get it that they're dead.
Yeah.
With John Carter, I went to the hospital that night when his wife called me. His body, he's probably still warm in the hospital, I sat there and looked at him. We talked. His sons and his wife were there, and it's like he wasn't dead. He was just going out of town or something.
Yeah.
Then it didn't hit me till a week or so later. This guy's dead, man. They buried him and he's gone. Well, anyhow, so this morning, that's when I said to you, I need to talk to you about it. And of course, then you had the idea to do this. Well, I knew Oscar. We weren't buddy over the years where we called each other and we went and played golf or we had lunch or anything. But the occasions that I had to actually play with him were few and far between, because where he worked was not my zone,
Right, yes.
First of all, Oscar was a studio level trumpet player.
Yeah.
Which I am
commercial
not,
musician.
and never was.
Yeah.
And didn't travel in that company.
Right.
Nobody was going to call me from Motown to do a track back in Stevie Wonder.
Yeah.
If they'd called me, I would have taken it, but
yes,
that would have been a mistake on their part. And so, now where was I now? I've already lost my place here. So we knew each other.
Yeah.
Now because we'd run into each other at the brass shops. We'd run into each other at the Italian trumpet, handmade trumpets.
Oh, yeah, Colicchio. Yeah.
Oscar and I both were always interested in the tinker aspect of trumpets, how they worked.
Yes.
And we like to see these guys. We'd go back there in the back room at Colicchio's and watch these guys soldering and see how it worked and how they we even watched the guy take the pieces of flat brass and roll them to that bell. I was always curious about that.
Yeah.
And so was Oscar. And we were into, mouthpieces and trumpet bores and stuff. But then we had occasion to play together. We played in Charlie Hayden's Liberation Orchestra together.
Yes.
We played with John Carter's octet. And I may be wrong about this. I think we played with Horace Tapscott a couple of times. It's been so long now,
Yeah.
But anyhow, in the course of our being together, we somehow, the two of us, unlike the rest of the guys in the crowd there, we Oscar and I would often go to talking about our families and stuff.
I see.
And he had this real serious relationship with his mother. Unless when we got together, we weren't talking about Super Bowl or some female's anatomy or something. You know what I mean? That's okay too.
Yeah.
But we had these conversations about you growing up and did you get a lot of support at home, what you did? And he's from Chicago. And he'd tell me, he says, oh, I was out of town with the Basie band, man, and I was looking around for some present for my mother.
Mm.
It wasn't ever about my girlfriend or my wife or anything. His mom came up all the time. And when we got to talking about it, the real church family, like mine. In fact, whether you like it or not, he came from the kind of family that I did. Whether you were a Christian or not, you were in that house.
Yeah.
You went to church.
That's the family I came from, too.
Oh, yeah. You got the Bible, you got the Lord and all of this for breakfast.
Yeah.
And it never stopped, and you knew that, just shut up.
Yeah.
Because that was part of the meal.
Yeah.
You know. And he was always surprised. I said, Oscar, you know, when I told him once, I said, I can tell you come from a church family. And he said, what makes you say that? I said, just in the course of our conversations.
Yes.
I knew you came, and you're probably a Baptist. And he said, how'd you know that? I said, well, I can tell you're not a Catholic. Right? That narrows it down right there. So now, if you're black and you're a Protestant, you're either Methodist or Baptist.
Right.
Or maybe Pentecostal.
Maybe.
Coming from Chicago, you're that Deepwater Baptist. For people who came from the South.
Yeah.
And we'd always laugh and talk and all. But we found ourselves talking about things other than, you know, the guys in the band kind of conversations.
Yes, yes.
And Oscar, you know, was a better than average tennis player.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he was from 1 to 10, Oscar was somewhere in like a 6 or 7, man. He played with these groups around town.
Yeah.
That weren't just going out there just having fun where they're going to have a cold beer afterwards.
Right.
He was out there, you know, hammering, you know, he was pretty good. But he was a wonderful jazz trumpet player, but he was especially a really well-trained trumpet player. Yeah. Just in terms of, you know, playing the instrument.
Right.
I used to watch him when we were playing together when he was using alternate fingerings for stuff with, you know, he played in situations where often intonation was a serious thing and you had to have all that together. Yeah. You know, trumpet players, we watch each other, whatever you're doing, especially somebody that you know is a good player. Yeah. Like I remember the first time I saw Miles Davis, who was not, in my mind, a technical kind of trumpet player. Yeah. But Miles was playing the E's and A's with third valve the whole evening. And sometimes the third space C's with second and third. And I put an education for me. I said, does this guy know what he's doing? I was saying, or did he just stumble up on that fingering? I don't know. Yeah. Because you see, when you watch Louis Armstrong playing, as trumpet players do, Louis Armstrong played the G above the staff, the first above the F line. He played first and third. You see, but Armstrong played the trumpet. You see by the seat of his pants. Yeah. He made the horn say what it was his ears told him. Yeah. And he pushed whatever it took to get that noise. Yeah. So he didn't know the meaning of the word, you know, alternate. I'm not, you know, he's one of my heroes, I'm saying. Yeah. But when Oscar and I were together, it often went to the technical aspect of playing the trumpet and what a burden it was. In fact, the last conversation I had with him was at one of the brass repairmen that you know very well, Rob Stewart. Yeah. We were both there seeing about some trumpet stuff, and Oscar had gotten some of these sort of see-through plastic braces for his teeth. Yeah. And he said, well, you know, my dentist told me, he said, sometimes I'm playing now, and the mouthpiece doesn't seat like it's supposed to and get that seal. Yeah. And he said, my dentist told me my teeth are shifting. I said, well, didn't you know that was coming? See, I'm older than him. Right. I said, I've already seen that already where I often pick my teeth, which my wife finds very offensive.
Well, you're not supposed to do it in public.
Oh, you don't, but I don't sit in a restaurant, you know, like one of those mobsters, and organized crime guys that suck on a toothpick. But I would use a toothpick, and I got to a point where the regular toothpick went all the way through, and which said the teeth were shifting. And I asked my dentist about it. He said, oh, yeah. Your gums are receding. Yeah. It's not painful, but they're moving up a little bit. Yeah. And more of your tooth is exposed. You may have some toothaches. And he said, your teeth are shifting. Does it bother you? I said, I'm sensing now that the mouthpiece doesn't sit on the sweet spot. Yeah. Like it should. Because the teeth next to the canine teeth, those next to, one of those moved and the mouthpiece sits right there. Yeah. And I found myself cranking over there trying to compensate for it. Yeah. He said, well, you want... when we do something about that, I said, we'll just wait and see and how far it's going to shift. Yeah. Well, I never went and got these things, but Oscar did. Yeah. And we were sitting out in the parking lot when he pulled them both out and showed me. Because at that point he said, I've got to correct this, man, because I'm still, still pretty active.
Still working, yeah.
Now that's got to be 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And I think that was probably the last time I actually had an extended conversation with him. Maybe once on the phone he called me when he was coming out to Rob Stewart's and he'd forgotten the exit off the 210 to go to this guy's place. But we had a nice relationship. I think of him fondly, he interesting guy, I didn't know much about his personal life,
Yeah.
I never knew if he was married ever or had kids or anything like that.
Yeah, I don't know that either. I know he did yoga.
He what?
He did yoga. I know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that either, but he was a health food kind of person.
Yeah.
I knew that.
Yeah.
But I knew nothing about it, whether he was married or not. And I got the feeling, though, that the money that he was making back in those days, he was putting it away someplace.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I have nothing to show for that, but he seemed like a kind of guy that when the time came, there was going to be money in the piggy bank.
Yeah.
Well,
he had income property.
Well, so you see, at one point he was probably making a lot of money, and he decided,
his top call.
Yeah, he certainly was.
Yeah.
He and Bobby Bryant,
and
Nolan Shahid, and a couple other guys. One guy named Melvin Moore. These were all guys who were top call for those kind of dates that we're talking about.
Yeah. I only did one recording with Oscar that I can remember, and decades ago. I actually rejoined the union for it. That's when I rejoined the union because I let my dues slide. And it was, interestingly enough, it was a feature album for Wallace Rooney, another trumpet player. It was Bob Belden project, and it was Tosca, jazz version of Tosca, the opera Tosca, which was never released in the U.S.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And so Oscar was on that date, and Snooky Young was on that date. They were in the trumpet section. But that's the only recording. And then I worked with him one season at the Hollywood Bowl when the Clayton Hamilton Jazz Orchestra had the season at the Bowl. So I worked with that group that whole season. And for me, Oscar was always supportive and encouraging.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's older than me, too. And I come from a different musical discipline. I remember one of the first times I actually had a conversation with him was on a studio lot, a TV studio lot. I think it was an awards show, but he was playing and I was catering, So I was on the catering truck, and he and some other folks came by and we knew each other, so we had a conversation there. He didn't know I did that at the time, like a lot of people didn't. I didn't let people know back then, unless I ran into him. But he didn't, like a lot of cats, he didn't look down on that. He thought that was, you do what you have to do.
Yeah.
In between gigs.
Of course, he knew that right away.
Yeah.
You weren't leaning on somebody else fill that gap.
Right.
You felt like you just... Ornette Coleman was the same way, man. He said, I'm prepared any day now to take a job washing dishes.
Yeah.
Or waiter.
Yeah.
I don't have any problem with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's special.
Yes. Yeah. So that's, and I would just see him over the years, but we didn't work together that much, like I say, because we're different fields, mainly. Now in the last couple decades, 2.5 decades, I do more of what he was doing, commercial music wise. But he hadn't played much recently, He wasn't playing much.
Well, that might have had something to do with his teeth.
Yeah.
Because when he said he hadn't addressed that when it first started to happen.
Yeah.
And in fact, he said to me, Billy Higgins had called him the year before about putting a group together and having a little tour in Northern California and Oregon or something like that. So this goes back quite a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, it would have to. Yeah.
And he said, "Oh, Billy, man, you don't want a clown show, do you?" He said his playing was not working like what you expect from him at the time.
Yeah. 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 So it's a loss. I don't know how old he was.
78.
78. You checked it out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, you got 10 years on him, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
11.
11. Yeah. Yeah, but he was a force to be reckoned with.
Oh, yeah.
And that whole, I guess if you ran into him in the 60s, he probably was showing up here then.
Yeah.
Probably hadn't shown up much earlier than that.
Well, you know, the reason I remember the 60s, that late 60s, early 70s, I played in a rehearsal band. Now get this. And we didn't get paid, I remember this.
Mm-hmm.
Barry Gordy had set it up, and he'd hired one of the local saxophone players to be the, what do you call it, contractor or whatever.
Yeah.
At least I never got paid.
Uh-huh.
And in that band, John Carter played lead alto, and Fred Smith, I don't know if you know him, who played with Smokey Robinson a lot, the other alto, and they had full-size band. But one trumpet player who's, I can't think of his name right now, but he was an ex-bassy player. Oscar showed up for that. I was called for that, but I was called, I think, like a lot of the other people, that this wasn't a paid thing.
Yeah.
And Diana Ross was coming, and we were going, just ironing the kinks out of some new charts for her.
Uh-huh.
Barry Gordy was there.
Yeah.
And this goes back at a point where we didn't know about the connection between the two of them.
I see. Yeah.
Other than the professional one.
You're right.
Some of the people in the band did, and this was on Sunday rehearsal. I'm coming back to me now. And she showed up.
Uh-huh.
And everybody, as soon as she walked in the door, everybody started looking at Gordy. You know?
Yeah.
And some people were snickering and all. So I think there was some deep thing already happened. So this is early, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. This was the late 60s or early 70s. I may be wrong, but it seems to me we might have been working out the arrangement on Ain't No Mountain High Enough or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she was getting ready to do a thing in Las Vegas. And I don't know who wrote the charts, but it wasn't Quincy. Because you'd remember it if he was there. But one of the guys who was really good at that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there were places where they were making corrections in the parts.
Mm-hmm.
And she was, beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful woman.
Yeah.
And snazzily dressed,
Yeah.
Everybody in the band, she walked in. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
and she didn't sing. She was just listening to the charts, and we, what was this guy's name? This guy that I'm thinking of now, his last name and first name start with the same letter. And he kept trying to, I think he was playing lead or split lead, and when he didn't want to play it, he passed those lead parts down to me. And whoever the other third trumpet player was, I said, man, I can't play those parts. And he said something like, well, what are you doing here again? I said, well, we're not getting paid.
Right.
Right. And he and I got off to a bad start. His name was like Willie Williams or Benny Brown, something like that.
Huh.
It'll come to me when we're done, of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I had met him before, and as I remember now, it's kind of a southern part of a northern bound donkey. Right? You can get away with that on this, right?
Yeah, you can get away with that. Yeah, people will write that down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he had been with Basie for years.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of those guys came at the same time, like Oscar and then George Bohannon. I think they came out here at about the same time. And, I mean, 60s, I didn't know anything about any of them.
Oh, yeah.
Mid-60s, I was in junior high school.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Junior high school. Yeah, he was a special cat.
Yeah, he certainly was, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
He'll certainly be missed. In fact, when I get home, I'm going to call Nolan Shahid.
Yeah, Nolan would have some stuff to say about Oscar.
Of course, Nolan's been sick lately, but he wouldn't pass up the opportunity to talk about Oscar, because they were kind of they were proud of themselves, and they should have been.
Yeah,
I remember him saying, when they get ready to do something big around here, they call me, Bobby Bradford, and Oscar, and we're the cats.
Yeah,
and that reason, it's justifiable.
Yeah.
And they made a lot of money.
Yeah.
And looks like Nolan did something with his too.
Yeah, you did. Well, he's important now as a recording engineer.
And I'm sure he put
and he still plays.
Yeah, he put that stuff together though with some of the money he was making.
Yeah.
A lot of guys. I just saw in the paper the other day where one of the women who was one of the Supremes just died. She wasn't the original.
Oh yeah.
You saw that at the very end, man. All the money was gone. The story was a pathetic story.
Yeah.
If you think about people who sometimes.
Well, they were like her. I mean, she's a star. First of all, she's a woman.
Yeah.
She's a star. People are going after them in a different way.
Oh yeah.
Than with the sidemen.
I know.
The band.
But some of us don't know what to do with money.
Yeah.
We could have come from a middle class family or a poor family. Just don't get it.
Right.
About where the money goes.
Yeah.
Well,
a lot of us never been taught, and start making money before you know.
Oh yeah. And you don't realize that there's going to come a point where this is going to stop.
Yeah.
And you will think to yourself, well, what happened?
Yeah.